Hello, everybody. Welcome here, or welcome back, whatever the case may be. Um, Today, I am putting on in the background this magical fairy flower forest. I hope everybody's having a wonderful day. I am here with my Good Morning Handsome mug of coffee. The irony is, it's decaf. But there's something to be said for the rituals that we create for ourselves. I I'm not ADHD or OCD. I have had elements of that in my life, never been diagnosed, but looking back at things from when I was younger and had to make sure that if I stepped on a line, I had to hit every line on the sidewalk, or if I missed a line, I had to make sure I missed every line. I would only eat toast if it was buttered on the darkest side. Like there were just little things that were a little bit obsessive compulsive. And I look back at that going, I think there's a little touch of that in me. Now, I actually actively fought when I was younger to break myself of that because I just thought, well, this is ridiculous. How come this is taking such a hold of me? Um, and for whatever reason, I was able to, do that. I never discussed it with parents, doctors, anybody because I just thought, Jesus, this is weird. But it was this overwhelming compulsion that I just absolutely had to do things that way. So, being as I've experienced elements of a lot of different things, I try to be, what's the word I'm looking for? Sensitive, I guess. I try to be sensitive to what other people might be going through. And unfortunately, I do often give people more benefit of the doubt than I should. But I'd rather err on that side than, make accusations against people unwarranted. I don't want to fall on that side of things. Now, I think I want to turn this light on and see if that makes a difference. Does that make a difference? Probably not. I really just don't have good lighting options here. Ever since I put those on the power bar so that they all go on at the same time, they all do exactly the same thing at the same time. Used to be when I plugged them in, they'd all be kind of random. So that was kind of a weird discovery, but I just realized they're all flashing together, and that one has no blue. How disappointing, it has no blue light in it. Must be burnt out. I don't know if they burn out. They're LED things. They were very inexpensive lamps that I got from a thrift store. I think they were like $15 each, which is probably more than they're worth, but I really wanted them and I had to have them, and now I have them. you know, that is just the way it goes. If you just absolutely insist on getting something, it may not be exactly what you were hoping it would be. And if you're okay with that, then go for it. Now, I written down, oh, there it is. Good thing it wasn't a snake, it would have bit me. There are things that I wrote down. I am, by occupation, a hairstylist. I've been a hairstylist since 1984. For anyone that may be wondering, where the natural progression of my life that's led me to being right here, right now, in front of you. I'm sure we can't cover all of that, but if I touch on little elements of it, it may help have it make a little bit more sense for people. So there are things that I would talk about hair, but there are a lot of hair experts on YouTube, and I don't need to be another one of them. They are very correct. I've gone through Hair Buddha is a wonderful, wonderful one. Oh, Brad Mondo. Um, he has a bit more personality that way. Certainly more personality than I have. But all of the comments, all of the things, all of the hairstyling information, everything is bang on accurate with those guys. So, and I'm sure there's plenty more. So there is no need for me to add my voice to that already overly saturated market. Now, that being said, there's no need for me to add my voice to anything in the world, but I'm gonna, because I got one, and that's what I do. Oh, now where was I going with that? Oh, yeah, so that's why I don't really talk about hair stuff, you know. I can't even really talk about wigs because there are people that are far more expert with wigs than I am. So there is no point in me talking about that. Now, I can talk about the fun of them, how I use them, what things mean to my life, but I will not talk to the expertise on that. And if somebody does want some hair expertise, by all means, ask me whatever questions. I will always give answers for things that are my area of expertise. I just find that putting it out there online, the information's already there. When I went thrifting the other day, Wednesday, today is Friday, so 2 days ago, I found another sort of short wig. I like the color. It's that sort of sandy ash, darky blonde. It was $5.99. So that was kind of cool. Ooh, the exciting things that I do while I'm recording. Take a little price tag off of a Value Village wig, or yeah. Now let's see. Shall I just pop this on my head and see what it looks like? Things that I don't do in the store, so I have no idea what this one's going to be like. But there's a lot of times I do film stuff and whatnot, and you just never know when you might want to have a different wig. And if you pay, you know, like $5.99 for it or whatever, you really don't care what happens to it. Like if I end up having to ruin this doing a film, you know, like who cares? There. So I never know what to do with it when it sort of bangs, and it's certainly not hairstyles that really suit me, but it feels really nice. Like that, you know, like you can, if it didn't fall off my head because it's not glued or anything, like you can run your fingers through it. Like it's really soft. It feels much more like real hair than a lot of them that I have bought at much greater amounts of money. So again, not sure how I'm going to utilize this, but it is I don't know, for $6, I think it's not too bad a wig. So that's one thing I wanted to check out. Thank you for being here with me for that. Throw my brush and the wig way across there. Do people like this one? I find it very pretty. I like the fact that it has a fair bit of movement, but it's slow, and I love the colors. I don't know who makes these, right, or whatnot, but there's a lot of them on YouTube. And they're fun to experience. Later on today, I am going for coffee, which is why I'm drinking a decaf now, because it won't be a decaf then, with my friend Scott. At some point, Scott is going to be my evil Papa Smurf in a film short that I'm working on the idea for. Now, he probably won't be called Papa Smurf, because that would be copyright infringement, but I think people will be able to get it, because I think if it's a parody form, we should not have copyright issues, right? And I think, Gargamel will be as opposed to Gargamel will be a good guy, a victim of the Les Schtroumpfs, which is what they were in French, which I think Les Schtroumpfs existed before Smurfs. Like, I think they were French taken to English, but I could be wrong about that. That is what my head is telling me is correct. But I have been mistaken before. That's usually my joke. I thought I was wrong once, but I was mistaken. But more likely, a more accurate joke for me is my jokes lack something. I think it's humor. I had some ideas in mind that I did not write down in my notebook, which is always problematic. Then I don't remember. And here I am having a conversation and not remembering what I wanted to talk about. Now, I'm going to light this cigarette, but I will probably cut this out of the video just in case kids see it. I'm not trying to promote smoking. I think it's a stupid thing. There's something I can talk about. Quit smoking for 4.5 years. Denis and I both were big smokers when we met each other. And eventually, I think it's probably 12, 13 years ago now, Denis stopped. I think it might be that long ago. We were still living in the other place. We've been here for like 11 years. So, yeah, 13 years ago maybe even 14. Denis went in the hospital with an issue with his heart. So he stopped smoking then. We still had another carton of cigarettes at home, so I kept smoking until they were gone, and then I just stopped. And Denis has never smoked since, so he's been smoke-free for 13 years or however long it's been. And I stopped for 4.5 years. Now, the stupid reason that I started again was I had a lot of friends that smoked, and I liked my friends. And after having quit smoking, the smell of people that smoked, not even while they were smoking, just being around them was so nauseating to me, I just couldn't do it. So in order to do that, I would have a few drags of a cigarette, and then I wouldn't notice them. And that was fine for the better part of 2 years. I just smoked that way, just a few drags here and there, when I was around these people that I did not want to, gag from being around them. It's so silly, I know, having been a smoker, I don't know why it was so intense. I know people that have never smoked that aren't bothered by the smell near as much as that bothered me. But for whatever reason, those were the facts, and that was the reality I was dealing with. So I was doing this for a while, and then for some foolish reason, much like I suppose an alcoholic thinks it's okay to have a drink after having been sober for so long, or any of those things, I just went, yeah, one cigarette won't hurt at all. I just stopped before. I've been stopped for so long. I'll just not be going back to it or anything. So I had a cigarette. Everything was fine. Didn't feel like having another one. Going around. So bit by bit, every so often I would have a cigarette. Being at somebody's house, occasionally I would have a drink. I don't drink very often, but when I do, I like to have a cigarette. I can smoke without drinking, but I don't like to drink without smoking. It's just the way it is. And I found that bit by bit, I was smoking more. And by the time I decided I didn't want to have another cigarette, I was kind of craving the cigarettes. So it was a terrible trap I fell into, and I have no doubt in my mind that eventually I'll get to the point I was at before where I go, yeah, I just don't feel like smoking, and I will stop again. But I'm not there right now. So it's just kind of the way it is. But, Denise certainly has been a great inspiration for not really wanting to smoke because he has done so well in not bringing it back. Now, I have no doubt in my mind that a lot of his stomach and weight issue came from him stopping smoking. So there's always a trade-off whenever you make a decision to do something. Do something for the better. There's something else that's going to have to be adjusted that you weren't expecting. And you have to be able to roll with the punches as they come and reevaluate and problem solve and eventually get to where you want to go. But it is a lengthy process. It's not well, it shouldn't be. It should not be an easy path through life. If you don't have enough, to say challenges, but things to overcome, you don't actually learn enough. You fluke your way through, and then if the situation comes up again, do you actually know how to get through it because you've already done it? Or do you have to rely on fluking your way through again? So, things are a little bit dicey when it comes to, which is better, which is the better way to do things. So I try to learn as much as I can, as often as I can, and apply it. That's the big key. Learning it is one thing, but you have to apply it. You have to apply it to everything that it applies to. Now, I learned that from my dog Tucker. He was an endless source of knowledge just by me observing him. Oh, and that music is so relaxing, it's just distracting me. Well, I may have to cut this entire part out unless I can think of what it was I was going to talk about, because this is just ridiculous. I can't have a conversation that's it's hard enough having a one-sided conversation. I really, really would love to be discussing things with people. That is my preference. I love having conversations with people. And sometimes they're very excited and people I will talk over people that are talking over me because we have so many things we're trying to communicate at the same time. And these are things that I struggle with. I'm forever trying to get better. Not that there's anything wrong. I always am trying to improve on the me that currently exists. And there's a lot of people that may not agree with the me that exists. They may think that why would you even want to go there? Well, it wasn't about want. I didn't choose what I wanted to be interested in. I'm just interested. So, and a good example of this is when I was in grade 7 and 8, everybody, boys and girls, had to take a half a year of shop, which, all the woodworking and metalworking and all of those things. And everyone, boys and girls, had to take a half a year, because we didn't have semesters, so half a year of home economics, which was cooking and sewing and budgeting. So useful skills, all of them useful skills, doesn't matter which side of those. Now, I had zero interest in taking shop. I wanted to take a whole year of home economics because those were the things that I found more interesting, especially the cooking. I have always been a really good cook. It's still the case now, and often just I don't follow recipes. I know how to cook. Now, I will follow recipes if there's something I'm specifically trying to make that I've never made before. But once I've made it and I know what it's supposed to look like, I start playing around with it and turn it into my own thing. That's just who I am. Now, again, where was I going with that? All these distractions as I'm going through. So that's why I have to make notes. I do so much better if I have notes. But anyways, yes, so the being forced to take all of these things. So I had no choice. There was no getting out of it. My parents thought it was a really good idea for me to take shop, and I think that's because just innately parents want their children to do what is probably the most stereotypical for children of that age, gender, whatever, to participate in. I get it now that I'm older. I didn't when I was younger. All I wanted to do was what I wanted to do. And I do think I was deprived of things for all the wrong reasons. Not all the time, but more often than should have happened. Now, when I was in shop class, I found, despite my I don't want to be here kind of feelings inside, I never let on that kind of thing, but I don't want to be here. This isn't for me. And I was really bad at it, really bad at it. I couldn't really grasp a lot of the concepts when I started. It was just so foreign to me. It was almost like a, shop skill dyslexia kind of thing that goes on in my brain. I just couldn't get it to make sense, a lot of the stuff they were trying to explain. But I would go through, and so I learned to make a trivet, and I did that on the lathe. So I learned how to use a lathe, and I learned how to do some spot welding, and I learned, just little teeny things and little basic stuff that I am so grateful for now. I have all the little skills to do little odds and ends and creatively problem solve certain elements that are going on that would require that kind of knowledge. Now, I know nothing about automobiles beyond how to drive one. I don't even have a driver's license. It expired in 1989. I never bothered to renew it because I didn't really have a use for it. But I have the skill. I know how to drive. In case of an emergency, if I had to get somebody to a hospital and nobody else can do it, I can get them there very well, because I haven't learned any bad habits. I still, check all of my blind spots, keep my hands at, well, when I learned it, it was at 10 and 2. Now I understand it's at 9 and 3, but, I still understand the principle of it. My father, when I was younger, used to drive with his knees, take his hands off of things and just let the car go. Like, I don't know. People hang out the windows, and I never learned any of those bad habits. So that is one advantage. So unless I'm being pulled over for a spot check, nobody's pulling me over for anything that I'm doing, which is fine. But I digress again. My goodness, I'm bad for that. There was a reason I was talking about all this stuff and got into the shop class and all of these things. But I am very grateful for the skills I never anticipated even wanting to have. So never, ever, ever turn down free knowledge on anything. Now, that does not mean you have to follow it. You don't have to use it. You need to be aware of it. It's the same reason that, as an old man, for want of a better way of putting it, because those are just the facts. I am now in my 59th year, for anybody that doesn't know. And I think that it's really important to stay open-minded to new things. Now, that does not mean that when I hear somebody that disagrees with me, I'm going to automatically pay attention to what they're saying, because chances are they're using information I already factored in and still came to the conclusion that I came to. But I will hear it in case it's something I am not aware of. Oh, that's what I was going to say. So yeah, like young people, there's always been their own language, whether it be like in the 60s, and I can't go back before that. I'm sure there was before that too, but my experience in the 60s when I was born, there's a lingo and, to that whole jargon that young people would speak. Going through into the 70s, right, that had its own lingo. 80s, definitely. Oh, like, gag me with a jackhammer, I'm like so sure. It was terrible. It was a terrible era for young people communicating, as far as I'm concerned. And I experienced it. I was part of that, right? Like, that's when I was in high school, was 1980. 1980, yeah. that was a time. Leg warmers were a thing. I don't know why leg warmers were a thing. Like I guess it's understandable that you'd need to keep your legs warm when you're doing certain things, but why just the calves? Why from the ankle to the knee? Like, why is that the part that needs extra warming when you're doing things like aerobics? So clearly it was more like a fashion design, and it's kind of an odd thing to even be a fashion design. But I remember those and scrunchies, the side ponytails, the bangs so tall and flat and sideways that looked like you ran into a wall at 100 miles an hour, and they just stayed that way. It was an era. Neon colors were such a thing. And elements of that come back, and I kind of like how the 80s has been referenced since then, and nobody's gone back to it, because it was the worst era for hair and fashion that ever existed as far as I'm concerned, but it was fun at the time. I have these great nostalgic memories of that period in my life, even though it came with a lot of other negatives just due to other circumstances, homophobia, the AIDS crisis, things like that were really challenging to get through, because people are awful, and people shouldn't be awful, but they are. And I think it is those realities that I grew up through that have helped me determine that one needs to be better to the other people around them. And that is almost more necessary for the people that we don't agree with. And that is an odd dichotomy in my head that I have to find a way to make sense. But they are the ones most in need of understanding, I guess. Because if you just try to clash with them, they're never going to hear you. They're never going to know what you know. They don't care to know what you know. It goes against what they already want to believe. So I don't have any preconceived notions. I know what I would like to be true. Doesn't mean that I believe it's true. I just, wish it was. I wish there was peace in the world. I wish there was no such things as dictatorships. I know all of these things I wish for. The reality is they exist, and the reality is ignoring them doesn't make them go away. Are you trying to tell me something, Scooby? That sounds like an emergency issue. So I think I'm going to have to take him out. So we're going to call this quits. It's been like half an hour, which I'm going to cut down to gosh knows what, but we will find out at the end of things. So until the next time, as always, take care of yourselves and each other.